Hey, Bravo besties, I'm Jenny.
And I'm Kiani.
This is the podcast where we relive Bravo's drama in order, one iconic franchise at a time.
From Housewives to Vanderpump and more, we are breaking down every moment you love.
No bias, no agenda, just the gossip and commentary you came for.
Get comfortable. Your ultimate Bravo rewatch starts now. Hey, Jenny.
Hey, Kiani.
Are you ready for the last episode of season 1?
I think I have to be ready, right? We're here, so we got to do it.
Yeah, you better, as they say, put up or shut up. Is that a thing? Do people say that?
I like it. It sounds familiar. Buckle up. We're at the reunion.
Yeah, it's finally happened. So this is our first reunion episode, of course, and this one is unique in many aspects. It's unique because it's filmed in such a different way than any reunion that we would be watching today. We don't have a full studio happening. There's no host, no Andy, which is sad, but hopefully we get to see him soon. And so this is just a little bit of a different episode for a reunion because it's a lot more reflective. Being, as we explained kind of in our background of this series, this is shot as much more of a documentary style. And so it's really about just looking back and then kind of talking about everything that happened over the season. All the wives are together.
This is a really interesting format for the reunion. I think also how you mentioned an audience, like I would feel so bad for that audience watching a reunion. It feels like they film probably for like 8 hours nonstop for like
Yeah.
the regular reunions today. But what I do like about this reunion is that we get a chance to hear the housewives individually reflect. And I almost feel like that would be kind of a nice addition to current reunions because current reunions are really like they just get into the most heated moments of the season and they just kind of like go after each other, which is very entertaining, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't give the housewives any time to like reflect on their behavior or reflect on any of the audience stuff, like unless it's related to those events. So I kind of liked that, but I do feel like it went on a little too long for my taste.
I would agree. Yes. I think it is a lot of just like self-driven, kind of what they want to talk about. And the formatting is essentially, from what we can tell, is that they're just rewatching scenes from the season and then just getting to dish on it a little bit more. Let's dive right in. I mean, let's start off with our favorite MILF, Lori, shall we?
Start off with Lori.
So Lori starts us off. Since the show has aired, Lori is just receiving a shit ton of fan mail, it sounds like. She has been getting gifts and mail, gifts in the form of brand new Manolo Blahniks, which are very expensive shoes. And she mentions that this is from a mystery man that is a dad on the show Laguna Beach. And I just think that's such a cool opportunity for a crossover, but I don't think this is going to go anywhere. I don't think they actually ever get together, as far as I'm aware.
What a random collab there between OC. Wait, what did you say? Laguna Beach? Even more
Yeah.
random.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I wrote down that I wonder who it is. And they went on a couple dates, didn't they? Didn't they get together?
I think so. But I mean, that was him leaving her the shoes was like his way of like introducing himself, which is a crazy first move.
Yeah, imagine getting Manolo shoes first. I mean, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, I'm so upset," but I don't know if it would have the desired impact maybe of like, "Now I
I,
wanna date you."
just like from my brain constantly goes to the logistical side of things. And so I'm like, how did he know her shoe size? Like, that is my
I
main
don't
question.
know. Well, and I always wonder how these fan people, like the people sending mail in the old days, like, how'd you get this person's address? Do they have a PO box? Like, how did we get this sent to you?
Yeah, I have no idea. But there are rumors or suggestions that
Mhm.
the dad in question is actually Kristen Cavallari's dad. Yeah.
She's been hot lately too. She's still kicking it out there, being famous and
Yeah.
stuff. We haven't
Yeah.
forgotten
She is
her.
alive and well in the realm of reality TV. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so she gets these shoes. Then Lori digs into her side of the Slade events.
Yes. So, as we mentioned, Lori and Slade had a brief romance a couple months after filming ended. At this point in the reunion being filmed, Slade and Joe are back together. And Joe is sitting I think they're sitting the furthest apart from each other for a reason. They're being pretty cordial in their interactions, but I mean, it's gotta be freaking awkward at this point.
Yeah, and you're talking about when they actually bring like, near the end, when they actually bring the women together for, like, 10 minutes to actually talk to each other versus have their own little reflections, and,
Yes.
yeah, you can tell there's some awkward tension, but don't they just kind of Joe's just kind of like, "Yeah, we can be cordial, like, I don't really care."
Yeah, they do seem to come to, like, just an equal, like, "All right, we recognize that this is weird, but we're just gonna let it be." I don't know. I think there could be still some lingering feelings that they're just not wanting to bring to the surface. Because at
Yeah.
this point, Lori is pretty tight with Vicky. They've grown in their friendship significantly, so she has a direct ally there. And then Joe has kind of consistently always been the odd woman out in that she's the youngest. She doesn't really hang out with anyone except for Kimberly, and I think everyone has these preconceived notions and judgments about Joe because of her situation and the brief interactions they have had with her.
Right, well, and it sounds like a majority of Lori's reflection on the Slade thing is, I understood Lori and Joe to be completely broken up when we went out, so, like, I am not culpable if they were actually kind of together or not, that's on Slade, and she also has a new man in her life, but she's not ready to share the details, so
Yes, this is true. But I think Lori is just kind of really thriving at this point. You know, she's got a really booming career and it's going in a really good trajectory. She's got a new man. Her kids are doing overall really well. We updated that Ashley is working. She's going to school. She also shares a little bit about Josh and that there's actually a lot of positive feedback from them sharing his story and that unfortunately stories like his aren't uncommon in the world. And that they felt that this sharing of all of his struggles is going to help others, which is a good
Mhm.
way to look at it for sure.
Yeah, and I totally forgot this whole season that Lori was actively going through a divorce, that she wasn't already divorced. And so, like, imagine if she wouldn't have shared also Josh and she was keeping her divorce off the screen, like, she would have literally had nothing to add.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the name of the game when you sign up for a reality TV show that you're going to have
Mhm.
to share or talk about a lot of things that you would normally not really be wanting to bring to the public or even to maybe your friends that you're not too close with yet. Very interesting, very odd. But I want to dive in a little bit more about this incident where while Lori and Slade were hooking up or dating or whatever the heck they were doing, they actually had a weird run in with Joe. This was completely off camera, so we're just getting the recount from Lori's side as well as Joe's side and Slade's, of course. Housewife Slade
Mhm.
had to give his side of the story as well.
Yes.
But essentially, what it sounds like is that Slade and Lori decided to hit up the clubs, but they decided to travel to LA to go out, which already sounds like a terrible idea. I mean, commuting
So
to go
far.
out for the night.
Ugh,
Terrible.
no.
Terrible. Terrible idea. Anyway, so they're out in a club in LA, and reasonably, because it's so far away from where they actually live in Orange County, they expect to not see or know anyone here.
Right.
But what do you know? Joe happens to be at the exact same club at the exact same time and sees them from across the room and decides to approach them. It it's there's different takes here. This is where we get different sides of the story,
Mhm.
because according to Lori, Joe walked up and slapped Slade on the butt and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing here?" And was just like overall very flirty with him, and it made Lori super uncomfortable and also confused as to how she could end up there.
Yeah.
And then Joe's side is that the slapping of the butt didn't happen. She just went up and said, "Hey," like, "Hi," like a normal casual thing. So who do you think is actually telling the truth?
I don't know. I feel like the slapping the butt and saying, "Nice date," I could totally see Joe doing that. Like, she's just a little bit messy, so I could totally see her doing that, and then Lori also went on to say that, like, it seemed like everywhere Lori and Slade were going, Joe was there. So I'm curious if, like, Slade was kind of doing this on purpose, where he was just showing up everywhere Joe was, and at some point she just was sick of it and was like, "I'm just gonna acknowledge that, like, they're together, and then hopefully we can all move on and he can stop following me around."
Yeah, I agree. I speculate that Slade was definitely just playing both sides here of
Yeah.
one trying to like establish this relationship with Lori and then also make Joe very jealous in the process. He was really trying to flaunt that he was with a different woman.
Yes.
And clearly, maybe the jealousy bit worked because they did ultimately get back together.
Yeah, Joe was saying that after this incident that Slade was calling and sending flowers to her after they ran into each other at the club. But she's still a little bit these are my words. She's a little bit salty that Lori was going after Slade because again, in the world of like you can't just slide into someone's DMs, like you guys have to like it both engage in talking to each other.
Yes.
It's not super one-sided, and I think it's definitely fair for Joe to be like, "Lori, you knew we had this tumultuous relationship. You know that I was engaged to this man. Like, why are you swooping in on him?"
Yeah, and so soon after a breakup. I mean, regardless of the time frame that they had been together, they were engaged, and that's, like, a
Yeah.
pretty big thing to be coming out of. I think Lori swooping in was probably not cool, but I also think Slade was not being very honest or truthful, probably.
To either of them. He was probably
Mhm.
just trying to get under Joe's skin, and again, he was getting mad at Joe the entire season for going out, so he knows where Joe goes. He knows where Joe spends her time, and he doesn't typically go with her. So, he's totally doing this on purpose, trying to manipulate the situation, and I guess it does work out in his favor, right? He gets to have Lori, who, according to Michael, is the most gorgeous woman in the world, and he gets to go back to Joe, the 24-year-old Peruvian who's gorgeous and younger than everybody else that he's probably ever dated.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that brings a great point that Slade was so anti going out because he wanted to be at home with his family, but the second him and Joe aren't together, he's going out, like, that's it's a little weird, little convenient.
Yes, and end up in the same spot that Joe is, and you know all the places she goes, like,
Yeah, there's no way he
mm,
didn't know. There's no way.
yeah.
But we can dive in a little bit more about Jo specifically because she shares some new insights on how her life has changed since the show. Again, she is at this point back with Slade. And then she does acknowledge that Slade does come across in the cuts of the show as not a great guy. It's not
Uh-huh.
shedding a very positive light on him. And she says that a lot of the feedback she's getting from people, their perception of her is that she's a gold digger, and she doesn't agree with that. She doesn't think that she's a gold digger, which I question because, like, she had a career before Slade, and the second she got with him, she stopped working altogether and let him pay for everything. So, I don't know if that necessarily makes you a gold digger, but it does make it pretty convenient for you to not have to work anymore and just kinda reap those benefits.
Right. You're at minimum a sugar baby, at minimum.
Sugar baby, that's a better term for sure. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
enjoying being a sugar baby too.
right, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing, like, I think get your bag, girl, like, do what you gotta do. Like, fully claiming that you're not at all incentivized to stay because of the money, like, I think that's a little naive.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, she is still not fully on board with the whole mom role that she's looking to fill. Her and Slade have decided to be back together, but they are not engaged again. So they are just dating at this point. And she's
Yeah.
very hopeful that they will find a balance between family and nightlife. I don't know. It's possible maybe because Slade was willing to concede on going out ever and was
Yes.
willing to do that to make Joe jealous. But is it going to be a regular thing for him? I don't think so.
Well, and, like, let's be totally honest here, like, family and nightlife don't typically like, depending on how old your kids are, like, that's just never going to be the reality. Again, I think that's naive to think that there is a balance between 2 things that, like, there is no balance because they don't coexist.
Yeah. The only thing I could see as a potential is that Slade only has his kids part of the time, I believe. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
50-50 or not, but, like, maybe that's how she's hoping to find the balance is, like, half of the week
maybe.
she's mom mode, the other half of the week she's party animal mode.
I guess, but again, your spouse to be is also in his 40s, like, okay, I'm in my 30s and I don't wanna go out every week.
It's exhausting.
Like, that's just not a reality. I mean, maybe she's just hoping that she can go out at on her part-time off and Slade just won't get as mad, maybe. Maybe that's the
Maybe.
problem. It's not the balancing family life, it's I just hope that Slade won't get mad and I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Maybe he's just gonna let me slide a little more on
Yeah.
it.
He read the book Let Them, and now he's like, he's all in. He's ready to go.
Yeah, he's really just changed his mindset, I'm sure.
Yeah. But this whole thing with Slade and Joe also comes up in regard to Joe's relationship with Kimberly. Because as you mentioned, Joe is only really hanging out with Kimberly as far as the wives go. When the full cast event was there, Joe was hanging out with the other girls, but she was closest with Kimberly for sure. But some tea that like her and Joe are not really talking right now. And her reason, and obviously we can do spoilers on this episode because like you should have watched the episode if you're listening to this, but Kimberly's not on the reunion at all. So we don't get Kimberly's side. We don't know if this is the complete full story, but Joe says that Kimberly called Joe when Slade and Joe were trying to get back together, and Kimberly told her, like, "Hey, be careful, like, Lori and Slade are still dating." And Joe says that that wasn't actually true for the time, but Joe thinks that Kimberly told her that because she was retaliating for something that Slade and Joe said during an interview about Kimberly. So, twisted
Oh.
mess there of like weirdness of Joe making assumptions of why her and Kimberly don't really talk. But I'm curious about what interview this was that Slade and Joe did. And I'm curious about what they said or didn't say that she thinks would rub Kimberly the wrong way.
Yeah, it is really interesting to have such a flip happen, and I think it's kind of exciting in a sense. I know this is real people's lives, but all this drama is happening as soon as cameras go down. Fun as a viewer and just an audience of this reality show can hope that it kinda trickles into next season and we get to see and learn a lot more about it, but
Yeah.
it's interesting.
It is interesting. And I don't, it's so funny because I know I've watched all these seasons and whatnot, but I do not remember like who comes back for second season. And so I can't wait to see if Kimberly pops back up.
It kind of is a letdown because we were struggling the whole season with wanting to see more of Kimberly, and now we get to, like, have this moment where the wives are, like, diving into what happened during the season, and of course, she's nowhere to be found, which, honestly, what would she have said much of, that she didn't already say?
I don't know. It is kind of weird though, because you'd think like I could understand her not being able to come to the like backyard gathering that they do at the very end of the reunion, but to just not even do like a recap video or anything. And they didn't say
Mhm.
why, did they?
She is on vacation, is all that was mentioned.
So they couldn't just record it another day to get her little reflect session?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I feel like they should have or would have done something, separately for that. Because even crossing over to another show, The Secret Life of Mormon Wives, the last reunion they did, Demi was not on the actual day of filming for the reunion, but they did a separate interview with her and just kind of recorded it in.
Yeah, and you know what's weird about that to me too? I wonder if it's a contractual thing, like we already fulfilled our contracts and then they decided to do a reunion and she
Mm.
was just not interested. It's not in my contract. I'm good. Because nowadays, if you miss a reunion, Andy is like you're out.
It's like grounds for immediate termination. So, what I'm gathering from ye old Wikipedia, there's an article from Distractify,
Okay.
which states that she has not been seen at any of the show's reunions. Her absence from the reunion events is attributed to her husband's controversial actions on the show, which led to her family's departure from the series.
What do you mean controversial actions? Kimberly? Was it his ugly shirts?
Perhaps.
What? Was it him talking about
Um,
prostitutes and how much they cost?
eh,
I didn't remember that.
Speaking of Gina, there's some stuff that goes on in her family life that is sort of mentioned, but not really gone into depth about. And this is regarding her husband, Matt. So they mention a little bit here and there that he has issues with alcohol specifically, and that he's also suffered a major head injury, which ended his career in baseball. So they kind of dance
Yeah.
around it, but they don't actually say what happened. Gina kind of keeps it, back on her and her family when she's reflecting back on, her experience doing the show, what she saw watching back. She is, kind of mentioning similar things to the rest of the women that people are starting to recognize her. So they start to gain all this notoriety. around their community, especially. She gives updates on the kids, and they're all doing really good. She also said something which I thought was kind of funny in that she only recently took up cooking within the last few years because previously they've always had housekeepers and nannies, which I think is kind of funny that she's new to the cooking game as a 40-something-year-old woman. And then she wants to clear the air a little bit about Shane and Kara's relationship because we did get that episode where they were literally just at each other's throats for the entire episode, and she just wants to set the record straight. They do really love each other. It's just a teenage sibling rivalry,
Yeah.
which, yeah, having been a teenage sibling before, I can understand that.
Can absolutely relate to that. Yes.
Yeah. But we don't get too much else with Gina, just kinda keeping it light other than the dancing around her husband's alcohol addiction.
Yeah, that's a tough one to hide. I don't know how she did it, to be honest. Like, just thinking about Lori's situation and how she was so forthcoming with her son. Like, I guess she was able to really like hide it because he travels for work, I guess. And so she was able to just pretend that that was the case for an entire like six
Yeah.
months.
Then we'll round out with our girl, Vicky.
Yes. Let's end it on Vicky. Good point. Vicky, this is so not surprising to me, and it's just so interesting to hear her say this, but Vicky, watching this season back, she became really critical of herself, especially being portrayed as controlling in the way that she looks, which is really not like if you know anything about Vicky today or like even listening to her talk to her mom, like you can already tell that she's very self-conscious about the way that she looks. And this didn't help watching herself back.
No, it definitely did not. And she kinda sees that she is being portrayed as a control freak, but that she does somewhat agree with it because she knows she has a tendency to be a micromanager.
Yes, but there's only one way to do it, and it's Vicky's way. So that's okay, right?
Correct.
That makes it okay,
Yeah.
I think.
She also wants to clear the air a little bit about how Michael is being portrayed as lazy, but that he's not. He's not lazy, which is hilarious because we're seeing the proof in the pudding with all of the scenes that Michael's in. I mean, he showed up to this job site apparently to help his stepdad, Don, and then he just kind of looks around and leaves right away. And that she also clears up a little bit about her crashing Brianna's date with Colby. I guess it so happens that she happened to be right next door at the Rite Aid, and that's why she was able to just kind of pop over, and that she actually wasn't aware that Brianna was filming, which at this point, Brianna's under 18. I feel like Vicky would have been aware that filming was happening.
Well, and as she just previously mentioned, she's a micromanager. I find it hard to believe that Brianna's doing anything that she doesn't know about.
Exactly, especially with the whole debacle starting in the first place because Vicky was not okay with Brianna driving to Newport that night. She
Right.
needed her to come straight home after the date.
Right. But it does sound like Michael is improving at CU Boulder, right? After the last episode, they said he brought up his GPA to like I don't know, something 2 point something. So he's off
Yeah.
academic probation. So good for Michael.
Yeah, he is doing better. He's on the right track now, at the very least. And Brianna seems to be doing really good in school. And Vicky in the work from home life is also continuing to kick ass with her partner Lori.
Yes. Um yeah, and she doesn't did you notice? I'm noticing now looking back at my notes, but did you notice that she didn't really mention Don?
No, not a once.
It's
She does
interesting.
not mention him. Yeah, I didn't even take note of that. I think because I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I didn't notice it until just now.
Yeah, that is interesting, but not surprising to me.
No, I'd agree with that.
So we take it back to Vicky's house, I believe, for this pool party rewatch. So this is the time where all the ladies, except for Kimberly, are together and they are watching clips from the show and getting to kind of reflect back on it and talk about it all together. So right off the bat, the first kind of intro to Gina, she immediately gets, faced with the comment that she made in episode 1, speaking in regards to her and her husband were essentially set up because they knew that they had good genetics that would go well together to make athletic children.
Yes. Yes.
And she does regret that comment. She regrets saying that because it's not entirely true. Not entirely false, but not entirely true.
I mean, it can't be the first time she said that. That's not a phrase that just rolls off the tongue.
No, I don't think so at all. I feel like she has to have been saying that for a while.
Yeah. That's a weird thing to say.
And she also updates us, Gina, that Colton has stopped stuttering. So I don't think we really touched on that too much prior, but in one
Hmm.
of Colton's interviews, he mentions that he does suffer from a stutter because he's constantly trying to get his thoughts across before his brother Shane can interrupt him. And that's why he developed it. So Shane being out of the house has completely cured Colton's stutter, which is hilarious.
As Gina said, Shane is high maintenance and they're happy that he's away. They need some space.
And then Lori gets to express some of the things that are going on in her life. She talks about how her and Joe are getting along pretty well. And we do see that, like we mentioned, they're pretty cordial with
Mhm.
each other. And that Josh's dad is just not involved in his life. And that's why we don't see him at all.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, very sad.
Yeah. No wonder the divorce is really hitting him so hard because you think about not only is your life changing because your parents aren't together, but now your dad's just kind of like choosing not to be in your life.
Yeah, that's gotta hurt quite a bit
Yeah.
and play into a lot of what Josh is going through in his thought process. And one of the things that I pieced together, which is kind of nuts to me, is that Joe is actually only 4 years older than Lori's oldest daughter, Ashley. So
That's
Lori
weird.
is kind of old enough to be Joe's mom. And they were going out with the same dude at different points.
What does that say more about Slade than it does anything else though?
I have no idea what that says about who, but it's just kinda crazy to me. And it makes me wonder why if that maybe is part of the reason why Lori is kinda taking the high road, so to speak, on this and not getting too bothered or wanting to just have peace with Joe, because she already has enough going on, and she has her daughter, who is only 4 years, Joe's junior, to deal with, so she's probably like, "I'm good. I'm tired."
Yeah, and especially to have that whole whatever happened in the club when they were there is like, I don't know. If I was Laura, I'd be like, I am trying not to be a fix a hoe. Like, I don't have time for you, Slade.
Yeah, absolutely. What if the plot twist was Lori broke up with Slade because she was over the club scene now?
God, I would love for that to be the case.
If only.
She'd be like, "You're just
But
not
yeah,
enough of a family man for me, Slade."
yeah, I need a family man.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, it's so different too to how it is today. Like all the women were just like getting along. They were cordial. Like they were kind of picking fun at each other in like a very casual way. And it was kind of cute, like kind of fresh.
Yeah. I think they seem a lot more bonded at this point, obviously from when they started filming and they weren't really hanging out, and I think there's definitely that sisterhood is forming because they are in it together. They're all experiencing a very similar effect of, like, being recognized now, and they have fans, which is probably really weird to go from
Yeah.
being, like, just a regular gal to being someone that's obviously recognized when you're out in public.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
Definitely.
will wrap up our summary of the reunion with a quote from our same article that we used in the very beginning to go through the background of who produced the first episodes, who came up with this. So our guy Scott Dunlap, who developed the show, said of the show, he never expected the show would have psychological ramifications, exaggerating some of the participants' emotions in front of the camera or stirring up hard feelings in the community. For example, producers turned off cameras when one couple's arguments became too intense. One father's arrest for drunk driving was never included, and his lawyer's request. And I feel like this kind of exemplifies sometimes like how dark this show can get potentially. And it is interesting to hear that they didn't necessarily think about what the impact of putting cameras on people and calling it reality might do to them in their lives.
What I find interesting actually in that is that it sounds like a lot of the grown male adults were protected with things not being seen that, obviously they didn't
Mm,
want talked about. But Josh, on the other hand, had all of his business out there.
yeah,
And I believe
that is really
it sounds like
interesting.
it was his choice to share that. And I think that shows like such a sign of maturity that he was completely willing to open up about it and own up to what he had done and share his thought process.
Yeah, that's true. These men are just not willing to share it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because it was their choice and Josh's may not have been his choice.
That's true. We don't know for sure. All right. Well, to bring it into the full wrap up, we would like to have our end of season award ceremony party. Party of two, and whoever is listening to this. Party of us. So I'll start off with our center orange. So, to give a little bit of background information, When you see the promos of any Housewives series, you're gonna see one of the housewives in particular being the center of the group. She'll be kind of placed in the middle, of course, and a little bit more forward than the rest of the wives. And being that we are in Orange County, the symbolic item that they are holding in their hands is an orange. The significance of that center woman in Real Housewives is that her role is a central figure in the dynamics of the show. She kind of either represents being the most influential member of the cast. She also is kind of influential to the women on the show as well. You kind of see a good way to put it might be that she's the queen bee. So she's
Mhm.
kind of just involved a little bit everywhere. She also could be the one that's initiating the most drama or conflict. But overall, she is like the crucial main kind of character and element that really drives the narrative of the show. And so for this first season, I don't know that they really understood the significance of the center
Mm.
orange, but they did decide to put Kimberly at the center of this particular season. And
Yeah.
I disagree with that choice. I think we both are on the same page.
Yeah, I absolutely disagree with this choice to make her center orange. I think maybe potentially it's because she's kind of like the encapsulation of that area potentially. And they didn't, as we've mentioned before, like it seems like they clearly made the episodes and the reunion distinct from each other. They didn't make them at the same time. And so maybe they thought Kimberly was a little bit she kind of brought Joe and the rest of them together a little bit. Like maybe they thought she was instrumental in that, but I think with the fact that, she her friend and Kodo weren't the group that we're looking at. They were a completely separate group of people. Her girls' trip, again, was a completely separate group of people. She really didn't do much to contribute to what was going on this season. So, yeah, I would have to agree with you that her being the center orange doesn't make sense.
It does not. So we created in the best way we know how a hierarchy in the form of a dance bomb's pyramid. This is a pyramid that we have both agreed upon. So we're just going to start from the bottom and work our way up to the top because I think the top will reveal who we might both agree should have been the center orange.
Yes.
The deciding factors in picking this hierarchy is personality, entertainment, and engagement. So, really, how they resonated with us as a viewer. And so, at the very bottom of the pyramid, we have none other than Kimberly. I think
Yes.
this one is pretty self explanatory. She has just kind of been a dud for part of the season until more recent episodes. And then the fact that she was just starting to get really engaging and interesting and then just like falls off the reunion show because of these circumstances that were happening in the background of the show. Um, it's just really disappointing. We didn't get to like fully, I think, vibe with her. And right when it was supposed to get interesting, she just kind of dropped out. So that's how I feel. And that's why she's at the bottom for me.
Yeah, I love the great summary here. I don't have anything to add to Kimberly's storyline, or Kimberly's reasoning for being at the bottom. So I'll just go ahead and give us the next lady at the bottom. So we've got 2 ladies at the bottom, and then we'll have 2 in the middle tier and 1 at the top. And the next lady that's on the bottom tier is our sweet, gorgeous friend, Lori.
Lori. This
Lori.
was this was a little bit of a tough decision, I would say. I wouldn't say
Yes.
she right off the bat like absolutely the worst one by any means, but I felt that Lori should be closer to the bottom because she just didn't have very much character development herself. Like there was a lot going on around her and all the people around her were really like developing and like getting better. And though she started to see some success in her career, I just felt like she could have done a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, and she didn't really blossom, I would say. Like, she didn't have her own storyline until the end of the season. It was mostly focused around Josh and her divorce and things like that. And then she started getting a little bit more of her personality when she went to the Playboy Bunny party. So I think Lori still has some more to show for us, I think. I think there's a little bit more in there than we were seeing, but I think as far as the personality and like engagement category, she wasn't really doing much for us this season.
We'll climb up to that next tier, the middle of the pyramid. So the
Mhm.
first lady we have in our middle pyramid is Joe. So
Yes.
Joe, I think, definitely was a big star of the show. And I think really the main reason that I wouldn't put her at the very top is just because that would mean that Slade is associated with that, and I don't wanna give him that. I don't wanna give him the satisfaction because really, like, half of her scenes was about him being solo, doing things with him, and I just felt like she was being really honest in her confessionals and off or with just her and the camera, but she wasn't sharing that with Slade, like, they weren't having those conversations. That was the most frustrating part is that she's clearly saying that she's not ready to be a mom, but she's saying it to everyone except for the person that it matters most to.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, and she was only remember, she was only coerced to do the show because Slade wanted to do the show, so I think that's in consideration here for why she's in the middle tier.
Yeah, 100% agree.
On to our next lady in the middle tier, and I think this is where it got a little tricky for us deciding between these last 2 ladies because we've got some heavy hitters here. We've got the only 2 left are Gina and Vicky. We had to decide between them, and I see now why
Mhm.
it is challenging for people to pick, like, why there's so much controversy on the center orange because it's kinda tough to say who really stood out the most and who didn't. And so with all of that lead up, we decided that middle tier to close out the middle tier was Vicky, our girl Vicky. And it kind of makes sense if the show was essentially based off of Gina and her family, right? That was where he got the inspiration. And so she really got the most airtime, I would say, on the season. And they focused the most on her family. We learned the most about her personality, her parenting style. We learned a lot of that about Vicky too, but I think it's just like there was no Dawn, right? It was just Gina, and, like, she really touched on her past, like, we got to see her as a Playboy bunny and how she's changing her life. She's a realtor, and she works really hard, and I just think that we got all 3 categories to the fullest extent from Gina.
Absolutely. And I think one of the main reasons I would say that Vicky was not the top gal is like you mentioned, just the family dynamics being so different. I think it was just a little bit more enjoyable to watch the dynamics in Gina's family because it felt kind of weird to see how differently Vicky was treating one child versus the next. And they're very
Yeah.
different children. So I'm sure there's very different parenting approaches there. But I just really got the most entertainment out of watching Gina's kids interact with each other because 'cause we've said it multiple times, they love to crack a joke about each other or just absolutely, like, rag on each other, and I
Yeah.
personally found them to be more relatable to me and how I grew up, so that's why I would pick Gina as our top of the pyramid.
If Vicky this season showed more of Vicky whooping it up, would that change your opinion?
1,000%. We did get to see her whoop it up a couple times, which was great, and I really enjoyed watching her on vacation and just completely, like, flipping it 180 and just showing, like, how different she can be, and I love Vicky, been, following the show for a while, so I know kind of what's to come of her, and so this was really hard too to not weigh in everything that I know now. We're basing this
Mhm.
solely on the personality and entertainment that we had from season 1.
Yeah, because what we got a lot of Vicky micromanaging, like, really, that was a lot of what Vicky's content was, and I enjoyed watching her, but you're right, that the entertainment factor was Gina for sure, she took the cake on that one.
Absolutely, and so, obviously, we feel that Gina should have been the center orange.
We do. By deductive reasoning, she should have been the
Yes.
center orange. So, we're gonna move into our next segment in which Kiani is cheating. We are gonna play a little game called Guess the Quote, where I, Jenny, have assembled a few quotes for me to ask Kiani who said these quotes. Are you ready, Kiani?
I am ready.
I'm gonna start with the easiest one because of part of our conversation. So, the first one is, I don't think gold diggers really have jobs, do they?
Would this have been Gina?
No, oh my gosh, you got the easiest one wrong. It's Joe.
Duh. Wait, I wanna redo.
No, you don't get a redo.
I thought Gina would have been saying that about Joe as, like, a dig.
No. She was kinda talking shit about herself, Joe was.
Okay, self-deprecation for the win. My
Yeah,
loss, but your win.
good try, good try. The next one is she, referring to Lori, on Blonde Time?
That's gotta be Gina.
That's Gina, yes. Correct.
Thank
Good job.
goodness. I'm just gonna guess Gina for every single one.
Okay, great plan. The next one is, she makes me feel like the most important person in the world.
She makes me feel like the most. Is this Brianna talking about her
It
mom?
is Brianna. Okay, the next one. If I get a chill, I'll be pissed.
My God, fucking Michael.
Yes, this is Michael. And the last one is everyone has sex on prom night.
Gosh. I think that was Lori.
That was Lori. That was Lori.
Yes.
Good job.
Then I got 4 out of 5. That's pretty good.
Good
I'm
job.
proud of myself.
No, that's pretty good. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Well, that wraps us up. Season 1 in the books. We're done.
We are done
What a
with season
ride.
1. It feels weird to be done already, but I think overall very good starting point, and Scott, thank you again for creating this show that takes up so much of our lives. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you for starting this wild ride that we are still on almost 20 seasons later. So, there you go.
And with that,